Good morning, or good afternoon when this video reaches you from YamiB TV, and as promised, an interview with my old friend from 30 odd years ago. Darren Webster tells you his story today.
Young brother, nice to see you again, my man.
Darren, look, we'll go straight in. We do it different on YamiB TV. The last podcast you appeared on was Sean Atwood, which would have been about a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Can you take us back to what brought you there, how you was feeling at that time, what was going on in your life, what's happened since?
Yeah, so, first of all, I'd like to say thank you to Yami & Co for having me on, and thank you for being a friend for all those years.
Yeah.
And, so in 2020, I first come to the attention of Sean Atwood via another podcaster called John Wedger, who gave me an interview about my life. Sean saw what me and John spoke about, and he invited me on his show. So the reason for going with Sean Atwood was because it was about my life, what I'd been through in my life, and it was about me, spending years and years in the Category A prison system, and also the build up to going into Category A's. It was about my life of being heavily sexually abused by my parents, their friends, members of their club, and also the sexual abuse I suffered whilst in an approved school as a young lad. So Sean had me on, did a good interview, and thank you to Sean for having me and putting my story out there and getting me some exposure, and it really helped. So with Sean, after we finished filming, I went to Guildford to his studio.
Yeah.
And we done the filming and we left. But with that, I just met the lady in my life, Kelly, who you've met. And I'd been with Kelly then about 3 months. So went with her along. Yeah, I met Kel when I was filming with John Wedger. I didn't realise that Kelly was somebody who was watching us because we did a live. I didn't realise she was watching. And in my head, I thought there was like 10, 20 people watching. It turned out it was 10,700 turned into a live. And and she was the first person in my life to say, like, we the people believe you and love you. And thank you for what you did. And it was hard. Like she said, she got upset watching it. And I didn't message straight back. I messaged in a couple of days. And I just said, like, I'm sorry for upsetting you. I do apologise. And she said, no. It's just, your life was like hard to digest sort of thing. It was really, really bad. So then after a couple of weeks, I was living in Bristol. I was doing a few other bits and pieces with John and Co. up and down to London. And Cal just lent out her hand and said, do you want to come up and stay in Great Yarmouth? There's a beach on my doorstep as friends. And it was. I went up for a weekend and never went back, Became really good friends at first, and we just, we fell in love within a week. We fell in love with each other. And it took me 50 years to get to that place. It took me 50 years to find peace in my heart. So, and we kind of, it was different because obviously I had people reaching out to me left, right and centre. People were messaging daily about my life, and people were like explaining to me about theirs. And I was trying to be like yourself, you're trying to be like a friend of everybody, aren't you? You're trying to help people, and I wasn't helping me. Really, I was neglecting me, and I wasn't caring about me, I let me go, and I was just trying to people please with everybody. Can you come here and do this? Can you speak to me? And I was like, yeah, because I thought that's the dumb thing. That's what you do as a person. So me and Cal had met. I moved in with Cal in Great Yarmouth. So I moved from Bristol to Great Yarmouth, and everything was like tickety-boo for a bit, Everything was going really, really good. Then at that stage, Sean had the podcast, I think 6 weeks after it come out. It was being shown, it was premiered, did good numbers, over 130,000. And it attracted a lot of attention. and it also attracted some unwanted attention as well. Yeah, in a really bad
form of.
So obviously I'm 53 and Kelly is 47, and obviously we've lived a life before we met each other. You know, we both went celibate, and you know, we both went, you know, the virgins sort of thing. You do it that age, don't you? You have a life, you meet people, you do this, you do that. It's called life. It's what you do. And you know, there was no secrets from me and Kel. She knew about my life, and she told me about her life. You know, we didn't. There was nothing hidden, nothing, you know, derogatory or anything horrible. It was just, you know, she basically with Kelly, she had a bit of a life as well. Whereas, you know, with her past, she actually came from a narcissistic family who were quite harsh, you know. And she used to say, like, you know, it was nothing like compared to yours. I said, but it was, because you had the mental torture, which is in some ways worse than physical torture. And so she kind of said to me, look, I was seeing someone, but I wasn't, who's from Yarmouth, but it was something and nothing. She met him at a bad time in her life. She had a bit of depression. She came off working from being on cruise ships. The house she had, she couldn't go back to. And some weirdo just kind of said, look, you can keep on my sofa, and took advantage of that trust, you know. It wasn't a relationship, and I believe Cal, and it wasn't a relationship. She always said to the guy, look, there's nothing in it. You know, I'm just here because I got nowhere to go, sort of thing. And he was cool with that. And obviously, one thing leads to another. But they split on good terms. They both sat down and realised that they weren't for each other. So, but unaware to me,
he was wasn't he? Did I hear somebody that he was known to her though from childhood or something like that?
So yeah, so because Great Yarmouth it's not a big town. It's a seaside town.
That's where Blunderston is.
Yeah, the jail. I remember.
Not far from Norwich.
Yeah, you used to go there with the old prison transfers years ago.
On
the
They
transportation.
call that on Wednesdays. The national
ship out.
The national ship out.
When I was in my day, it was on a Thursday. But
yeah, it was either Wednesday or Thursday. Big holding. Remember down here, it's got different rooms in it with the names, and you never know where you're going when you get shipped out. Well, no, C cats or B's or A's. You just
A's we just went.
Oh yeah, we went. Oh yeah, that was straight. B's and C's were different. Yeah.
So yeah, she knew him as, you know, he was a lot older than Cal. Yeah. She was like 14, and this guy was saying that, you know, oh, I liked you at 14, because, you know, well.
Did she remember him?
Yeah.
She remembered him from when she was young?
Yeah, because she used to do, you know, a lot of door work as well. She used to work on doors, and he was a doorman. And he kind of bided his time and waited until she got to a maturity sort of thing. But he did say to Kel that, you know, he liked her as a young child, which is a bit, you know, at 14, I'm sorry, mate, that's nonsified to me. You know,
harbouring fantasies from back. Oh God.
You know, we all get fantasies, mate, but not at that age. I mean, come on, you know. I wouldn't even fantasise over someone at 18 because I know it's wrong.
So then that's finished. That
that was
not
kind
much of a relationship.
And it really wasn't. There was no love. You know, she kept it a secret because of that reason, because she was embarrassed. You know, he knew her parents, and they knew him well. He was like kind of like the town idiot. Sorry. And and they split on mutual ground. You know, there was nothing in it. You know, they were like, you go your way, I'll go my way. He had his place, she had her place. But then we met, and all I said on Sean, he asked me where I was living, and I keep my address private, and my location, and I just said like East Anglia, and my partner Kelly. So he's put 2 and 2, looked on Kel's Facebook page and saw pictures of me and Kel, and then it went for a bit, you know, didn't hear nothing. Then I woke up one morning to a bad day. I woke up knowing that one of my closest friends the day prior had committed suicide. So I woke up at 7 o'clock that one of my friends, Vladimir Black from Bristol, had committed suicide because of how his life had been. And that was hard to take. Then within 2 hours, I get a private message. And I look, didn't recognise the name, and it was really long and really brutal. And he was telling me that Kelly was into bondage, and Kelly liked to be raped, and Kelly got a dark side, and Kelly's violent. Basically, everything that I spoke about in the interview with Sean, he put into a message about my partner. So he was trying to say that my partner was this, that person, and sorry, it's my dog. But you know, my partner was everything that I've been through, and it was lies, and it wasn't. I ignored the message, and I knew that morning Kel was on a course. So what I done was waited until she finished, and I said, look, I don't know who this is, but what the hell's going on, sort of thing. Who is this guy? And it's all this true. So she's flew home from work, and she's like, oh my good God, that is bollocks, and that is the guy I was.
He posted this online?
No, he
I'll message you with
private
it first.
messaged me at first, and it blew me away, mate, because it was quite bad, it was quite deep, and it was really hurtful, and you know, and I believed Cal, and I really did. And
well, you straight away believed it was lies.
She was devastated, mate. I could see in her eyes, it literally ripped her to bits, and that was it for a couple of days. We didn't hear nothing. Then she went to Tesco in Yarmouth, bumped into him, and kind of said, listen, don't contact me, stay the hell away from me, leave me alone, blah, 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 blah. We did for a couple of days. Then out of the blue, we were sat there one night, and our phone, well, Carl's phone went, and it was her friend. He said, you okay? And she's like, yeah. She's like, you need to get on Facebook. And Kelly's like, why is that? And she said, because your pictures are on Facebook, and there's not nice things about you. And Kelly's got some screenshots sent to her, because they weren't friends on Facebook, and he was accusing Kelly of raping him, and said, like, this lady raped me, she beat me up, she abused me. Kelly's 5'5", he's 6'3" doorman. Don't happen. I know we'd win in a fight, and it wouldn't be the little one. And so yeah, then he was putting it that Kelly was a rapist. He did it to tell her friends and family about their little fling sort of thing. He did it to expose, you know, basically it was to get at us, because he didn't like that we blanked him. You know, there was nothing to see here. I didn't message him back or blocked him. And he told the whole world about him and Cal. Well, of course, at that time, it really had a bad adverse effect on her family, because it's shame, isn't it? So her mum and dad kind of took it really, really hard. Like, you know, they were devastated that she even entertained him, let alone, but she was down in the dumps, mate, you know what I mean? And anybody would do the same thing. You think it's a sofa to crash on, don't you? You don't necessarily think that about everybody. And it just went really, really bad from that bit on with Kel. She kind of fell out with her family quite deeply because of the shame she brought on him, and the shame she brought on him herself.
Yeah, but how she brought shame on him? It's not her saying it.
No, because
agreeing to it.
It was. She just felt awful that they had to hear it that way, and it was on everybody's lips in and around Yarmouth. Everybody was talking about it. People who hadn't seen Kelly for like a year or two were saying, "Oh, do you want to go for a dog walk?"
Wow.
To get the gossip, and Kel was like, "No, I'm sorry. You know, I've not seen you for a year. Now it's that I'm a rapist." So what Kel done, the next best thing, because he said on his message on Facebook that he's been to the police. So we contacted the police straight away, because that's, like I said to Kel, that's a bad thing. Rape's a fucking bad thing. Sorry, rape's a bad thing, you know. And the police had no crime reference number. They didn't know anything about it. He'd not contacted them. They actually come around and done a statement from Kel, and they knew we were devastated, and they just said, "Look, the guy's cuckoo. You know, he's just a weirdo. Just ignore him." But the sad thing is, they said that online, anybody is allowed to put a picture and say anything they want about anybody. It's not a law, like, you know, unless it's like you're threatening to end someone or do something bad. But because he was accusing her of being a rapist, so they said, look. And she did go quite over the police to her.
I didn't know you could go that far.
I didn't either, mate. I didn't.
Without evidence, facts, or a case or anything, or highlighting something that would be they could prove that it's happened.
Prove straight away, you know. So Yeah, it was really, really hard.
Her mum and dad at that time, not really supportive, just looking at it like it, you know, it's...
Yeah, her mum and dad were like, you know, as if they were hard done by. You know, really like, oh well, you got Darren, go on, do one. You know, thanks for that sort of thing. And Kel was, it really upset Kelly, and it really upset me, because this is the lady who I'm in love with. This is the lady who helped me with my life. And
so, Darren, sorry, excuse me.
Yeah, go on.
So this happened before you went on Sean Atwood? Or after? Yeah, so, so when he saw your interview.
Yeah.
What kind of campaign took place after this initial minute with Kelly, then it was your turn?
God, so it was after the Kelly allegations. Yeah. We just felt uneasy in Great Yarmouth. You know, we didn't feel safe. So we decided that, you know, Great Yarmouth wasn't really a place for us anymore.
No.
That, you know, even with myself in Great Yarmouth, I felt that everybody were against me, and I was trying to help everybody as much as I could, you know, and I felt that I had a couple of people attack me. We had two people, verbally, not, you know, we had a couple of lodgers in the house, and they kind of turned against me because of my life, because of being on Sean Atwood. They thought, you know, I was this and that, and I wasn't, and they got really nasty. I had another survivor attack me, a guy called Michael Tarragher, who's dead now, God rest his soul, but yeah, he attacked me. Sean interviewed him along with James English, and he started attacking me then, and I just started getting attacked. And then that was in about the October of 2020, all this was going on. So we decided to move to like the other side of the country, sort of like 450 miles away. And we left in the nick of time, because at night, you know, we couldn't let the dog out for a toilet because we were worried that he was going to get poisoned. I felt uneasy because I knew we were being watched. And just by idiots, because you know what idiots are like, small-minded people, small town, you know. And we left Great Yarmouth to start a brand new life. But as quick as we left, within a couple of weeks and being in our new house, I get a phone call out of the blue. And it was the police in Great Yarmouth, and it was like a high-ranking officer, and she was like, you know, Darren WEBSTER? I said, yeah. She said, there's a threat to your life. And I was like, excuse me? And I laughed. And she said, do you know what an Osmo is? And I was like, yeah.
What's an Osmo?
So it's when someone put out threats to kill you.
I thought it was Osborne. Oh, it's an Osmo. Osborne or Osborne?
Osborne, sorry.
Osborne.
Sorry. Osborne.
Explain it now.
So basically, an Osborne is when people have made threats publicly to endanger your life, basically to take you out. People. So, and I was like, and I laughed, because I thought, nah, this is a joke, like, you know, with the life I've lived, I've never had one. And she said, no, an Osborne warning is there's been a threat to your life by numerous people. And she said to me, where are you at the moment? And I explained where I was. And she said, you're not in Great Yarmouth, are you? And I said, no. And she said, because there's a group of people that are out looking for you.
Because of? So
this same guy who Kelly had to shit with decides to put my picture on his my pictures on his Facebook page, saying that I was a paedophile.
Oh no.
And someone asked him, like, how do you know it? Like, that he's a paedophile. He said, because I've had people from different parts of the country message him. Nobody knew him, mind.
It's basically he's using your vulnerability to what you exposed yourself on Sean Atwood.
He was then saying that, you know, he had people that had messaged him. This is what the police were telling me, saying that I sexually assaulted him. No one knew him. There was never no evidence when police
allegations.
For these messages.
No crime numbers.
And he said, oh, I didn't.
No incidents. Yeah. No victims to speak of. No names. No nothing. But he can put all that up online and get a big crowd and campaign against you.
And he did. And what they said he was doing was when there was people saying like we're going to get him, he'd intervene and go, it could be your kids next. We got to get him out of Great Yarmouth. They did it to flush me out. They did it for someone to find me, because I could quickly step back. The first message he sent me, at the end of it, he said, meet me in private. Don't tell Kelly. I want to talk to you. I didn't, because I know that's not good. I didn't reply, and I didn't go to meet him. And what he then done was he enlisted, sorry, I forgot this bit, he enlisted the help of, I was starting to get benefits in Great Yarmouth. He enlisted the help of someone who he knew working for Great Yarmouth benefit office. Her name was Julie. And she would ring me like twice a week and to do interviews about your benefits. And then she would go into like my past, but not about like crime and stuff. It was more about my abuse. And she said,
you talked about a little bit on that one.
Yeah, and she would say to me like about because this was after Sean.
Yeah.
And she'd ask me about, you know, how it felt like, what it felt like, you know, did you get abused by Sydney Cook? And I said, yeah. And she was like, oh, you're so lucky. And I would say, and she was going into these horrible places, and I was heard on tape because the police had the tapes, and yeah, they confiscated on the police and said it was disturbing on my behalf because I kept saying to her, please, I don't want to talk about this, you know.
She's doing that on behalf of him.
Yeah, and it was like just to get into my head, you know. And it was horrible because I felt like killing myself.
Your money got stopped?
No, she said if I didn't answer the phone calls, that she'd stop. I was only getting $6.52 a month. But I was a man of pride, you know what I mean? I wanted to pay my way with Cal, you know. And it was horrible. You know, she kept ringing me twice a week, and then she said to me that she was going to meet me for a coffee. And I said, no, I don't want to go. Like, I don't know you, you know. Can you please stop going into that, the abuse, please, you know. It's horrible. And
the worstest thing that you could ever call anyone is a paedophile, if you're not one. And the worstest person to say it to is somebody that suffered at the hands of him.
yeah.
He knew perfectly well what he was doing because he watched the Atwood show, so he's gone below, he's scraped the bottom of the barrel to affect you and Kelly because he was jealous that you were together. Blue's getting upset. Did Blue go sit this way? Not there, Blue.
Yeah, come here, this is my dog. Yeah, sit there.
Sit down. Darren, just take a breather. I forgot to.
Yeah, no, it's all right, mate. And
so the campaign, basically, the Osborne warning, they came and they told you
about what had happened, and
there's a lynch mob waiting for you.
Yeah, that it's not safe for me to be in Great Yarmouth. And I said, so what happens now? And because at that time they found out on, you know, through the Universal Credit that he enlisted Julie. Yeah, to help me. She admitted that he helped her.
And she
helped him, sorry. She admitted that. And I suppose me dog's just happy. She admitted that he enlisted her to break me. And then the crazy thing was with it all, this is what killed me with the law. When they were both interviewed, they both pled like insanity and that they had mental health problems. And, you know, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Life got the better of me. So if someone pleads, Lou, come down, mate. Sorry about this. I'll get the dog. Blue.
He knows you're upset.
Yeah. And basically, if they plead that they're mad, they drop. They can't. Blue. They can't charge, can they? A dangerous person sort of thing because they're not feeling great. So they basically got off with it. But Blue, no. Sorry about this, guys.
Did she keep her job?
No, she lost it.
Didn't. She lost it.
She lost it. And
she would have got prosecuted, surely?
No, because under the Mental Health Act, no. She got caution. They both got caution for it.
Both got caution.
They both got cautioned for what, you know, they both did. But they were told never to contact me again. So what he would do then after that was he didn't contact me. He kept contacting afterwards through different names, Universal Credit. and making out that I was working, so they'd stop my benefits. This went on for like, Blue, come down please, mate. This went on for like 2 years. You know, there's them upset, don't you, boy? This went on for like 2 years, and what it done, because I was getting my money stopped, then it would come back on, then he would send another email saying that was me. He even said it one time that I made a couple of $100 off of Sean Atwood from the videos. He said that I was getting like £3 a hit from the video. That's lies. I didn't make a penny off of it. But for in that, they had to stop my money to investigate me. And then they bring you back and go like 3 months down the line, you know, there was nothing to see. You were right. We investigated the email and it came from Great Yarmouth, and they would notify the police because they had to. And then the police would bring me again and said, look, we've gone again. We spoke to him and said that if it ever happens again, you're going to get prosecuted now, because you're not mad when you're doing it, but you are when you're being interviewed. You know, you can't keep doing this to people. But what it was, it just really took an effect on me, and it got me heavily depressed. And
how would Darren? How did Kelly's parents responding to all this stuff online, mum, dad, and like what was their part in this with Kelly and his support? Please,
so, come on, Blue, you need to calm down.
Come on, please, Blue.
With
It's always the way.
Dogs and kids, don't have them on filming. So with Kel's mum, she took it because she was in a lot of pain from her husband and her arguing about it. She come to the house not long before we left Great Yarmouth, and sorry, dry throat. Her mum come to the house. It was her mum's sister's anniversary of her passing, and she had to drop something off to me. So her mum come in the house, and it was shocking, really. It was really, really shocking. Blue.
She said, what
So
I mean, the mum?
Yeah, so she come in.
Yeah.
And I started talking about her sister who passed.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, I didn't give a shit about her. Me and her fell out. She died owing me money. So I'm thinking, well, what are you doing here then?
Harsh.
You know, made her a cup of tea and stuff. Blue, stop. Stop. And I thought, you know, what are you doing here? You know, what's all this about? And she just went off on this mad tangent, just putting Kelly down, going, isn't it odd that Kel had all these male friends? And I'm thinking, no, because I had a lot of female friends. And then her mum says, you know, because the guy was called Stephen Drewy, they called him. She got out her phone and said, I can organise a fight between you and Drewy if you want. And I'm thinking, are you for real?
Go back to the cat.
Like, are you... Stay there, Blue. I'm thinking, are you for real? And she was deadly serious. And I called it. And I said, you know, no, Blue. And I said to her, you know, Blue, got to relax, mate. You know, and I said to her, do it. Ring him. Don't put it on me, expecting me to back down. I'm angry at this time. And I'm like, Blue, bloody hell, calm down. Calm. You know, I'm like, this is a joke, mate, you know. So I lost my concentration now.
I know, you're gonna.
Oh, dogs.
Yeah, so she was saying basically.
Yeah, so basically her mum put it on me and saying like, you know, I can organise this fight for this afternoon. And again, she said, you know, I'll bring him to a tennis court. And I said, well, if you do it, you want me to get rid of him? I said, because I'll go through him. So she shits herself down. Yeah. And then she started just going off about, you know, oh, Kelly got this wrong with her, Kelly got that wrong with her. And I was like, are you for real? Like, she just really turned into a nasty person. And she gave me 4 ultimatums. I either stand and fight, and she organises it. I either get taken to the train station, and I never come back. I leave Kelly alone. I just go. And then she said to me, and she looked and she come forward because she was sat in a chair, I was on the sofa, and she come forward and she said, you know, it ain't going to get easy, don't you? And I said, what do you mean by that, Sheila? She said, you know, it ain't going to get any easier for you. She said, why don't you go and, you know, get rid of yourself? She said, because let's be fair. She said, life you had, you know, all these problems, mental health and stuff. She's like, do you really want to be here? And I was like, yeah. I got really angry, mate. I won't go into details. There was a lot of horrible words that I said to her because I felt really offended. When you've come in my house, you've put my partner down and you've put about 3 or 4 ultimatums my way. And like she said, and you can't go out, she said, because he's part of the skinhead movement in Great Yarmouth. They're all going to get you.
So why not kill yourself?
So yeah, she said, you might as well. She said, and you know, Kelly'd be all right. She'd get on with it. And that's what she said. And her exact words were,
great man.
you know, it's not going to get you shit, basically. And I chucked her out the house.
Yeah.
I just, you know, excuse the pun, I just told her just to get the fuck out of my house. Like, who the fuck do you think you are?
So this is real pressure.
This is
time for Kelly. She's got to go through this with you.
And her mum was like, you know, oh, don't mention this to Kel. But I had to. I had to. Don't mention, you know, she didn't want, you know. But the sad thing was, I wasn't the only person with that, because a lot of people prior to me, 5 friends of Kelly, had told her that her mum was extremely jealous of her. Because, you know, she didn't, you know, Kelly's not got kids. Kelly's always a very headstrong person. She works extremely hard as an individual. She gets up at silly o'clock and comes in at silly o'clock. That lady supported me. You know, I was, and of course, with all this going on, with all the thoughts in my head, I become very ill, Yummy. I become very, very ill. It really affected me. It affected me mentally, and it started to break my body down. Basically, I went into die mode. I gave up. It nearly killed me on about 3 or 4 occasions. It nearly took my life. I started to lose weight. I couldn't eat. I couldn't really drink. I kept having bad nightmares, and my body was aching from head to toe. So with all the, you know, Kelly being called a rapist, me being called a paedophile, me telling the world of what happened to me as a child, Kelly's family really putting it on us having to move in fear, because in our heads we'd have been killed.
And a man who's seems to be holding the power over everybody's life.
And it started to play on my body, and my body went into breakdown mode. I started hemorrhaging blood.
This is unbelievable.
Inside, I started to hemorrhage blood. Yeah, it caused me to have 7 ulcers and 2 or 3 hernias. Then it started clogging up my heart valves. It blocked 2 of my heart valves. Stress. This is what stress done to me. And twice in 21 and 22, I had to have operations because I got so stressed that my stomach split inside and I bled into my stomach. And I couldn't walk. I was heavily medicated. I was always having different tests at the hospital. And even my GP said that on 2 occasions they thought they lost me because I went to the GPs. I had internal bleeding, so my skin went yellow, my eyes went yellow. I went down to like 9 stone, and it was just it was, they're blue. Hopefully you sit down now. You know, come here. My body started breaking down because of that trauma. You know, stay here, blue. My body started breaking down because I'm laughing at him. Idiot. Yeah, sorry, mate.
Serious,
no, yeah, I know. I'm sorry. It's just in.
No, it's not. Yeah.
No, my body started breaking down,
Yeah.
and I was bleeding quite a lot every other week. I was in and out of hospital. I had to have 2 operations, and at one time they were going to do heart valve replacement because they didn't know what was going on. Then one of the doctors asked me why I got myself in such a mess, and I explained as to why I got myself in such a mess because of what we've been through. And he understood that and put me on different medications to help the heart start pumping around, like beta blockers. I'm on about 5 tablets a day now to keep the body straight. And they stitched me up inside twice. where I had the tears from the internal bleeding. They got that done. I had to have like angiograms, like heart murmurs. I was really going back all the time, left and right, to have stuff done. And then they said, look, I'm going to put you on medication, and if this stuff doesn't work, you're going to have a triple heart bypass. And that was all down to stress, you know. Yeah, and that's the thing people don't realise. It's all right when people start like hate campaigns on innocent people, but what you don't realise is they've already been through enough in their life, and the body in the person can only take so much before they hit breaking point. You know, in my head, I shouldn't have been going through those things, because I've left a place which just plagued me with bad memories to come to a place of golden sands, sky blue cloud, you know, beautiful air, fresh air, and no one knew me. And it turned out to be one of the worst moves in my entire life, going to Great Yarmouth, because it almost took me. That place nearly cost me my life. You know, I'm not being off. There are good people in every part of the country, and there are good people in Great Yarmouth, no doubt, but I never met them.
Ultimately, his plan, he hasn't succeeded. Your health's got better, and you and Kelly are still together. So she's your guardian angel.
Yeah.
Probably the only person in your 50-year life that's been a tower of strength, because without her, really.
She was, with Kel, she let me talk. She didn't understand my pain, because she's not been in my boots. But she listened, and she understood that I come with a list of triggers, you know, because of my previous life. I come with a list of triggers. Things aren't easy for someone like myself to live with at times. There's certain things.
Well, that abuse that you talked about on Sean Atwood's show, I mean, hearing, you know, the details, and probably one of the most serious case of abuse that I've ever come across, without going into graphic details today. From 8 years old now, you 4 years you stayed with your parents, and you suffered at the hands of your mum and dad and all of those who were surrounding them as well. And then you end up in care at 12, and then your trauma and kind of institutionalised getting into crime and that kind of stuff starts around about that time.
Yeah, because, you know, I've had a lot of trauma in my life. From the age of 8, you know, I was born December 27th, 1969 on a Tuesday morning, and I was born premature, so I didn't have a great start in life. I was, you know, with a child when they're first born, they get the scent of their mum, so that's the bond. Yeah. You know, I didn't get that because I was premature. I spent 4.5 months in an incubator. So my best friend became a plastic tube and a blue light. You know, I didn't have a bond. So I was kind of like, excuse the pun, I was fucked from day one. You know, I had everything going against me. And yeah, and I stayed with my grandparents until I was 8. You know, I always called them mum and dad. And then at 8 years old, the people that conceived me took me back for 4 years. And obviously, like I said on Sean, you know, went a great time of my life. You know, heavily sexually abused from 8 to 12. And it wasn't just at home either. No. I was, whichever corner I turned, I was being abused in school by a teacher called Mr. Flavin, one named prolific paedophile. And the worst thing I ever done in my entire frigging life was told the truth in the 2nd of June 1982 in court, because I was truanting from school. But I was only truanting from school because of what was going on. And I got put into an approved school. I got at 12. They did back then. They were like big things. Yeah. You never had to do a lot to go into an approved school. And I went into an approved school in Bath and stayed there till I was 16 and a bit. And, you know, it's those things that kind of shapes man going through life. And that's what we spoke about last night, you know. When people interfere with people and with the people we've met, and the people wonder why they like they were, you know, with the men we've met in our lives, that you know, they've all been through it, mate.
So that takes me on to one of the first couple of names that I wanted to mention that you had the kind of luxury that not many men in the prison system, category A system, unless you're, you know, you was around them early or you was there at the right time. And your thoughts on when you first went to the category A's of Long Lartin and in the Cat A's in general, and how you felt with Bob Maudsley and Patrick McKay.
Yeah, so I first...
You're on your way to the Cat A's and
yeah,
this is, you know,
nervous.
Killers.
Nervous?
Yeah.
Because when you back, and it was, I don't know if it's still around, but it was called the dispersal system.
Yep.
And back then there was about 11 dispersal units in and amongst in and around the area. And generally you went to a Cat A unit on your own because you went on a police escort.
Yep.
And I had that horrible privilege of going from Bristol, you know, to different Cat A units. And I got told that eventually, well, I didn't get told because you never got told until you got on reception. They kept everything low key.
Yep.
So you couldn't escape. And I got into Long Lartin in place in Evesham in Worcestershire, well, just outside, sort of in between Worcester and Cheltenham, really. It's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. And
you know, that's when life really opened up for me. That's when is horrible because I didn't feel scared in the Cat A's.
No.
Not at all. Not at all, because you got to remember, you're meeting like the most notorious of prisoners. You're meeting like with Bob Maudsley, like Robert Maudsley.
Yeah.
You know, I really like Bob's a lovely guy. You know, I like Bob. You got to remember, you know, don't condone murder. I don't, because it's a bad thing to do. But you got to remember, people like Bob, you know, Bob Maudsley, he's a very intelligent guy. I've had some really good conversations about him.
Yeah.
And I've had some really deep chats to Bob about his life and my life. And he listened and he understood every single breath I took in that talk because he'd been abused himself. And, you know, the monsters developed a monster in Maudsley. You know, he only killed paedophiles.
Yeah.
You know, he only attacked his enemy, sort of thing. And I didn't see anything dangerous or nasty with Bob Maudsley. In fact, I thought he was a brilliant neighbour.
Wow.
He was you know, a lot of people got different views with Bob, and I'm sorry about that. But I like Bob. I liked him. He was a good neighbour.
I know you was close to him.
Yeah, I was really pally with him. And he kind of, he lifted me. He lifted my spirits. He kind of gave me hope on the sentence. He kind of gave me hope of going forward. And he kind of said that, you know, every monster in these four walls are here because they've been abused. You know, courts and judicial systems, they ain't interested about that. They don't give a damn about what happened in your life, you know. And all this stuff about rehabilitation. There's no rehabilitation in prison.
No.
How'd you get rehabilitation? Not fighting people. You don't bang rehabilitation, you know. And I felt that the more serious if the offender, the more I got out with rehabilitation because I learned from them.
Because you wanted to know.
And yeah, they kind of talked to me about emotions and feelings, and you know, it was normal to cry. It was normal to feel scared. It was normal to feel paranoid. And this is Bob Maudsley, by the way.
How was his interaction? Because he was close to you. Everybody knows that. But how was he with other prisoners? What was his kind of... in those days before,
as,
you know...
as him as a person.
Like every day did he talk to many people?
No, he didn't. Because this was, like, a lot of it was in SSU.
Yeah.
And he was sort of like... really... Yeah, he kind of... just me and him. Like, you know, we'd go out and walk together. Yeah. And he'd ask me to cut his hair and stuff. And yeah, he only felt... He was close to people that had been abused because he understood their feelings. He had no time for, like, the different armed robbers and stuff. He said, because they're detached. He said, like, you know, we spoke sense because we can understand him. And he could talk about abuse.
Doesn't sound like he had much else apart from that wrong
you know what? He was, whichever which way he looked, he was doomed. Yeah. You know, he was doomed as a kid because he'd probably been sexually abused. Yeah. And I thought the world of Bob. You know, I really did. You know, and it used to hurt, like, when people would go, oh, Mosley's an animal. He's not an animal. They made the animal. Yeah. He's the victim. You know what I mean? Bob is.
I agree with this.
And then again, we come on to meeting
Patrick McKay?
Yeah.
But his presence and thing, and not a lot of people liked him, Darren.
No, I know they didn't. And, you know, yeah, he killed women as well, and that's bad. You know what I mean?
Where did he think about his crimes, though? Suddenly, all his family, like, what was the real breakdown there of him?
With Pat, I used to sit a hell of a lot with Pat, and he taught me, like, to draw and things like that, and he kind of helped me, because I was crap with reading and writing, and he would help me with reading and writing and stuff, and like the odd bit of cooking. And again, because he'd had this traumatic childhood, you know, he'd been abused. He come from he'd been abused as well, mate.
At the hands of his family as well.
Yeah, family
so
and people
you
that
could
come
resonate
in.
with him
Yeah,
and Bob.
and you know, I actually said to Pat one day, we were talking away, and you know, everybody called him Patrick. I just called him Pat and Mac.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be like, "You're right, Mac," and he's like, "You know, well, would you like a cup of tea?" And I was like, "Yeah, go on, and Pat." And we were just talking. He'd go like, you know, it was funny because he'd go like, "After you."
Polite.
You know, yeah, and I'd talk and stuff, and I'd take a deep breath, and he'd go like, "Have 5," and he'd go on with his bit, and I said to Pat one day, I said, "Are you a psychopath?" And he was like, He said, "To be a psychopath, one has to enjoy it." And he crossed his legs and kind of went, he said, "No." He said, "I'm not a psychopath." And I thought, you are, mate. You are. But when you're in these sort of places with them, you can't avoid them, can you? You don't want conflict with someone who's killed 13 people. I'll say hello. I'll say, "You're all right, Pat." I can't judge someone for their crimes, because I didn't do their crimes. So I've never harmed anybody like that. It's nothing. I'm not into that. But when they're your neighbours, you've got to get on with them regardless of what they've done. You know, I'm not judging jury, am I?
So he never spoke to a lot of people as well, Patrick?
No, a lot of people get Pat a wide berth.
Yeah.
You know, they really did, because, you know,
the Screws were kind of scared of him.
a lot of people was, because he'd look through people as well.
Yeah.
He'd had like a menacing look.
Yeah.
And, you know, he was...
Slaney didn't like him.
Oh, or Warren. Nah, a lot didn't, they? A lot of the bigger noises and names didn't like him. But then when I got talking to Pat on a one-to-one, and he'd go in about his life, you know, and I didn't really know who he was back then. I had no, you know, I just
There's
knew...
plenty like him in there.
Yeah, but I knew he was just Pat, my neighbour.
Yeah.
You know, and I got on with him. You know, who was I to judge? You know, I mean, I was in prison myself. And Pat, Maudsley, again, I ain't sticking up for him, and I ain't. They've done bad things. And I was in a place where I had no choice, but I had to say hello. I didn't want to end up dying, but I wanted to learn from him. I wanted to learn about your emotions, and is it okay to feel angry? Is it okay to cry? Is it okay to have the thoughts I got in my head about different things? And they were like, "Yeah, because you're hurting." Yeah, you know. And I remember asking them both, like, you know, is there any sort of tablet we can take to get rid of thoughts in your head and get rid of memories? That was what it was, to get rid of, like, my thoughts was just about hurting people that hurt me, you know, like my parents and stuff. And, you know,
the big question for those two in particular, and in general for many abuse victims that go into either lower level crime, or what's the difference? How come they went over the edge, and why me and you haven't, and why we stayed within, all right, criminals and all that, well, we didn't go, you could get...
Because with Pat and Bobby, because of their development in their brain, they didn't know really right from wrong, and they both admitted that. Whereas myself and your good self, we know what is right and wrong. Yeah. We know that we can't 100%. Take our pain out on other people, brother.
100%.
It's not your fault of what you went through, and it's not my fault and what you went through, is it?
Yeah.
And you can't put that on other people.
They can't process everything that's going on, and they're saying they're blaming, and somebody's got to pay. Someone
had to pay for the actions of other people towards them. And that was part of the psychological talks with both Bob and Pat. You know, I spent a lot of time with them both, and I got on really pally. I got on better with Pat. Yeah, because you know.
Sorry, quick question. Emma Bronson. There's rumours that Emma Bronson they had some words, and would you say that? On
But
that,
again, I'd say when it was, it's when he won Bronson.
Yeah.
It's when, like, people have asked me, do you know Charles Bronson? And I don't. I know Mickey Peterson,
Yeah.
but I don't know
Michael
Charles
Peterson,
Bronson. That was his
name.
real name, wasn't it?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
You
Yeah,
know
but
yourself.
sorry,
In Lawton, when Blink was there and
Yeah.
stuff, because Blink was with us as well.
Oh, yeah, Blink.
Yeah, he was there. He was there in Lawton, and he knew it. And with Danny Foy. Remember Danny?
Danny Foy.
Aunt Robert from London.
That was. Anyway, going to the Bronson McKay.
Yeah, sorry.
But Charlie, was he scared of McKay, or was it the other way around?
Nah, I'd say what with Mickey, he used to do a thing. We used to call it the crab, and he used to walk like this, and he used to call it
His tight shorts.
Yeah, he was a bit tight, wasn't he? Oh, did you ever see him?
No, I didn't see him. I just hear about this Patrick McKay, and I've been asked, a lot of my viewers have been asking
but
about
with Charlie, like Charlie Shorts, did you ever see him?
Who?
Charlie, Mickey.
No, look, Michael Peterson. I've seen pictures of it with shorts.
Yeah, hot pants.
Yeah, no, I didn't see that with my own eyes.
I used to
I
say-
met Charlie. Yeah, but not Mike, not
Yeah, I used to say to
McKay,
Mick,
not
like,
Patrick McKay.
do you get him sprayed on? You know,
And the bowl and the walk and the crabs and.
yeah, and I think
I thought I heard he was weary of Patrick McKay.
he was, because Patrick used to look at him.
But yet Slaney, Patrick McKay was the only person he seemed to be weary of was Slaney. Is that right?
Well, yeah, because
Slaney would stop and talk to people and say, "I don't like him."
Warren, Warren Slane, what a lovely man. What a lovely man. And again, I see some things and they go, oh yeah, Slane is a psychopath and he's mad. He's not.
No.
I'll tell you what he is. He's hurting. He's been behind the door for 30 years for a crime he didn't commit. And I'll tell you now, there's no evidence. The only thing Warren did say, and I met Warren in the early days, and I got on well with Warren, and I understood he's an angry man.
Yeah.
When you used to see him marching around the landings, when his head down, and so would you if you were there for a crime you didn't commit.
I'm telling you.
It, like he said, it was prior to those hot dog wars. That a week previous, he got off with an armed robbery in a garage.
I heard this.
He got off with it, okay, for lack of evidence.
Oh, yeah.
And the police held it against him.
Yeah.
Okay? They held it against Warren and they stitched him for the 2 murders in Leicester. So when Warren came into the Category A system, he was like, he was as angry as a wet hornet.
Yeah.
Well, why wouldn't you be? You shouldn't be there. You shouldn't be having a pop at Patrick McKay.
No.
You shouldn't be snarling at Danny Foy. You shouldn't have to march around the landings because you shouldn't be there. Yeah. He was totally innocent. You look at the depositions he used to bring out and stuff. No one pinpointed Warren.
No.
No one gave Warren's name apart from the police.
Well.
He was.
I'm starting the campaign soon.
And do you know what? Unless you've met Warren, if you've read about Warren, please don't judge him because he's innocent. Right. Warren Slaney is innocent, and Warren, it was a bit of a mixture really because he didn't trust Pat because Pat would always like, look, and he said to me one day, like, he's like, is your mate all right? And I said, what? I said, honest to God, like, I said,
he picks up on
he was, and I said to Warren, like, just have a chill pill. And he said, how can you? He said, look at the place. He said, you got mass murderers, you got him. And he was angry that he was there. And you could feel it in Warren. He's still there to this day, Yami. If I got stitched for something I didn't do, I wouldn't be taking each day as if like, yeah, this is great. You all right, mate? You're mourning. No, you're going to be angry because you've lost out on a lot of life. It's life you're never going to get back. It's gone.
He was there. Go on.
No, sorry, mate, go on.
Sorry, you get ready to take a break.
No, I just...
into the action now.
No, I'm just...
You've done really well, man. I'm proud of you. So in the 90s, we all know really deep down Warren was laying out mostly every man who was taking on some big names. Fair to say that you was there that day when he knocked Stephen French Spark out.
Yeah, the devil.
The devil.
Yeah. It was... The problem is... I liked Stevie, and I met him a couple of times. Yeah. Stevie French, he was, from what I can gather, was a bit of a noise wherever he came from. I got nothing against the bloke, and I got nothing against none of them.
None of them. Yeah.
They're all doing their bit.
History and it's storytelling.
Good luck and God bless to everybody. There was a bit of beef between him and Warren, because Frenchie was supposed to have been, I think, an 8th Dan or a 6th Dan.
Yeah.
And obviously Warren, so like, had a bit of boxing background or something.
Yeah.
It wasn't bare knuckle, which is like,
Yeah.
he was to tell us like he was a bit of a boxer and I think it was amateur. That was it, amateur boxer. So it was with Stephen French. He used to impose on people because he was a bit of a unit, and he'd kind of walk up to a lot of people quickly. Yeah. And he used to encroach on people's...
and standing in people's faces.
You can't do that in the Cat A's, mate.
Can't do that in the Cat A's.
Can't do that in the Cat A's.
No.
But he got warned a couple of times that don't encroach on people's... And don't get too close to people. And he would come up to Warren, and Warren's the worst one you can do it. Because Warren's paranoid anyway.
Yeah, and he ain't going to let you go first.
He's anxious. And you could sense tension on the tier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we was an A unit, so you could feel it a bit rocky, and I think this ain't looking good, this ain't looking good. And you could see Frenchie looking and kind of like smirking at Warren. And I kind of clocked Warren, and I'm thinking, okay, he's going to make the first move then out of these two, because this is going to be catastrophic.
Yeah.
He can go, he ain't going to back down, nor is he going to back down. And Warren just took off like a wet hornet and just literally took him out, mate.
Yep.
Literally. And the sad bit about it was, you know, with Long Larton, you had cameras in different places.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of bad blind spots, by the way.
Always.
Too many.
Yeah.
And, you know, even the screws took their time to come on and Frog Morrison both.
Yeah.
But, you know, not having a pop at Stevie French.
No, it's just one of those things. You can't win them all.
But I'm sorry, mate. You didn't win it that day.
As far as I'm concerned, saying a better man to see French in that life. You know, like that line there.
And
Darren, you know, during that time, right? So
I can give you someone who I was close to.
Who?
Frankiefraser.
Oh yes, they've been asking. Your relationship when I met. Go on, you explain it.
Oh,
it's your show, Darren. Go on.
So
Frankiefraser and Darren WEBSTER.
Francis. I used to call him Pop because he was the first person in my whole entire life that I ever cried to about what I've been through.
Is it, Darren?
Yeah, lovely bloke.
How did he take that? Go on.
I felt my shoulder get wet and he was crying because he listened to me.
Is it?
I told him about the pain I was feeling. I told him about how I felt suicidal. I told him how I didn't want to live. And I told him how I couldn't foresee life going forward. And he asked me why. And then when I told him about my sexual abuse, I've been abused to the best part.
Up to in big bad places there, Darren.
But I couldn't do it outside because no one listened. It's all right saying doing it in Cat A's and it, but when you're out, I tried it. I tried to do it with probation and stuff. No one listened apart from the hardened criminals. They listened.
So
Frankie, I loved him dearly. He used to literally listen to me. He would sit there. It was hard because the people that you don't expect to cry cried. You know,
I've seen that.
Victor Castador. He was
close to him as well.
Yeah.
Stick with Frankie though.
Yeah, sorry. But yeah, with Frank, he would ask me about my life and I would tell him. And he would ask me about my thoughts and I'd explain them. And he'd give me a reason to live. He'd kind of say like, you know, you're a strong man. What you've been through, it takes
He's old school, yeah.
He was old school. And like he said, you know, what you've been through, it takes a certain person to go out the other end.
Yeah.
A lot of people ain't like me and you. And it's like he said, and he gave it the same phrase as my granddad did on a pep talk, and I couldn't believe that somebody I'd grown fond of was Frankiefraser. When he said to me about, because we were both short guys.
Yeah.
He's short, I'm short.
Exactly.
And when he said it, I broke down in tears, and he asked me why I cried. I said, because my granddad gave me that talk. He said, boy, he said, with me and you, he said, you never get a diamond in a shoebox. And I said, I know, Frankie. He said, you ever notice? He said, the most precious of stone comes in a little box. He said, and that's you.
Is that how he talked?
Yeah. He said, you're that little box, boy.
So he's not really... How did we come across as a nutter thing, look after himself?
That was,
people
again,
say different things. What's the rule?
When you're out on a bit of work,
yeah,
you've got to be that person.
Right.
You can't be that man with feelings because you'll never get the work completed.
Okay.
It's a case of once the work's done and you're on holiday for that bit of work, you can be you, can't you? You haven't got to go out and prove yourself to him or him.
No.
You haven't got to do that. Whereas you've got to learn to get on with these people And I like Frank because he made cracking tea. I loved his yellow tea, thought that was brilliant. And, you know, he used to like, remember the Garibaldi biscuits? And he'd come out like, it was so funny. Like a couple of times we'd be out of stuff on the wing. And he'd go, you want a cup of tea, boy? And I'd be like, yeah. And he'd go, you want to give a Baldy? Like a Garibaldi? And I'd be like, go on then, Pop. And he'd go off and you could hear, Frankie, bang, like, and he's gone in someone's pad and just rinsed them in her bits.
Serious?
Yeah, and he's come back and he went...
On his Jack Jones?
Yeah, and he went...
On his own?
He's put it remember the old cabinets we used to have in there, in the prison?
Yeah.
Looked like the hospital things, didn't they? He used to put your crap in there.
Yeah.
And he'd put it on top and he'd go, fucking sex offenders. He'd make you a cup of tea, you go, look at that.
Unbelievable.
But we had to live with him. And he would listen on his bed of me talking. He was like my therapist.
Yeah.
I would talk, and he again, because he
took a shine to you, mate.
And because he had like not a great life, and he used to tell me a bit about his like going off thieving in the war, you know, looting shops and stuff. And yeah, he kind of go into a few other things, and he helped me with it. He was my therapist.
Right.
I had the best. I don't care what anybody says. I had the best therapist in the world. I had Robert Maudsley, I had Victor Castador, I had Frankiefraser, and I had Patrick McKay.
All right, so the other one that I definitely knew as well, because I saw you both together, you and Victor Castigator.
Yeah, I always called him Castador, like you call him Castigator. Yeah. Do you know what? I done a lot of things for Victor, and I kept Victor. I liked him because of his stature.
Yeah.
A lot of people would exploit him for bits of work.
Yeah.
And I felt that Victor didn't have to go on the work for a bit like finger and a black tar. He never had to do that. No. Like, he was better than that. He was a good cook.
Yeah.
And do you know what? He was, and again, he nicknamed me. He used to call me Crazy Baby Chicken Legs because I was short. And I was always in shorts. Yeah. And he used to call me Crazy Baby. I had hair back then as well. And he used to call me Crazy Baby Chicken Legs. And he was another one. He'd come in my, like, we call it Pad or Peter. He'd come in, and, you know, he'd talk, and he was very affectionate because he would tell me about his family. And when he went in and showed you his daughter and stuff, and his photographs and bits of his family, you know, he had a really good side to him. But then he could turn on a sixpence straight away, and then he would go on about being back home in Manila, working for the government. He was a hitman for the president. Yeah. And I said to him one day, I said, how many threatened you to suck out then, Vic? Like, and he was like, he said, Crazy Baby? I said, yeah. He said, 21.
Because he had to leave that runaway.
Yeah, go, didn't he? But he had the heads up, didn't he? They told him.
They told him.
Yeah, they helped him get away.
It's true, isn't it, though? Some people say that's so.
No, it was true. They helped him get away.
They helped him get away.
The Manila government helped Victor because he was their hitman. No. But when you're in these sort of places with him, yeah, you do see the worst, and you do see the good, and you do see the work he puts in. Because, again, he had nothing to lose. He felt that his crimes he committed in Soho were the employees were bullying him. And he felt victimised, again, because he said he felt vulnerable. Yeah. Because he was telling me about when he got married here.
His face changes when he...
Yeah.
Go on, when he got married.
Did you know he got married here? When he first...
But in
the UK.
Not in jail.
No.
Outside. Oh,
when he first come over, he got married.
I got friends that teach their kids before the Soho. He was around them at the time. One of them might be coming on my show, and he was good with kids, teaching them karate or Tai Chi or something like that.
Whatever he used to do, didn't he? Because he could do all the moves, couldn't he? And he used to try and teach me it for. He used to say it was good for meditation. Yeah. And there was like ways of releasing.
So he got married over here, Darren?
He got married. Didn't last long.
English lady.
Yeah. I
can't remember him showing me any pictures or anything.
No, because I think he did it for the green card. He got married, and you know, I kind of said to him like, you know, do you ever miss her? And he was like, and he wouldn't say nothing, you know. And I said, she ain't dead, is she? And he was like, no. I said, crazy.
A couple of those hits that in the early days, he'd just take you out straight away.
But he was clinical, wasn't he?
Clinical.
He was so clean. He was so clinical. And again, I've seen different things about Victor on different casts, like podcasts. they've not met him, like me and you.
Why do people go up there and say they were? They never weren't. They weren't. You wouldn't have even spoke to them.
How can you? I was sat in the day
Someone was
room one
telling a
day.
story. I was thinking, no, you wasn't. We
What?
was there. You didn't even used to talk to him.
There'll be a lot of people watching this who know a lifer called Martin Harrison from London.
Yeah.
Wembley guy.
Yeah.
He was always doing legal work for prisoners. I was in a day room in a unit when Victor come in and suffocated him. I was sat next to Harrison. We were watching, I'll tell you what it was, they had a video on and we were watching Tommy Still. Was it Half a Spoon of 6 months?
A comedy gives Tommy Steele.
Remember it?
What's his name? Something else, Harlem.
Oh, it was like...
No, yeah, but I know you're talking
Half
about.
a Sixpence. That was it. And Martin's like, oh, you want to watch this film with us? It's going to be good. So like, I've gone in the TV room, had a packet of crisps I took from my pad and remember the blue mugs of coffee.
Yeah.
I'm sat there. Doors opened. I heard like feet shuffling. Then all of a sudden I look round and Martin's there.
Oh,
and
no.
Victor got a bag tight over his head and kind of went, okay. And I'm like, but he gave him a couple of jabs, let him go. And Martin's like, jeez. You know, obviously Martin had owed someone and didn't pay someone back.
Yeah, and he got...
Yeah, Martin Harrison.
Yeah.
And I met Martin a couple of years afterwards and we was on about that.
Yeah.
And he said to me, do you know that was £5? I said, what do you mean? He said, I owed someone for £5.
That's what caddies are like.
He said, but
People
another...
get hurt over their money.
He said, another debt come in. He said, basically, he owed Pat some money
Yeah.
for canteen. He said, I didn't want to upset Pat.
Yeah.
He said, but then I went to the bloke who I owed the £5 and said, look, I'll have to double you next week. Is that all right? Because, you know, I don't trust Pat. And he was like, yeah. Then obviously the guy just, by all accounts, got pissed off.
Yeah,
passed it to Victor.
Yeah.
And, you know, but with Victor, that's why, sorry, mate, I'll quickly finish.
No,
it
go
there.
on. No, I'm just saying yes. Like, carry on. Like.
With Victor, I used to sort him out all the time. I get a good visit.
I know.
And I'd
He
come
weren't
back.
tight either.
No, but I felt sorry for the bloke because he wouldn't get him visits.
No.
He was on his own.
He sent his money back home as well, didn't he?
Yeah, from his wages, from workshops and stuff to support his family.
Yeah.
So he'd save it out, wouldn't he? And get that Union transfer or something, or Western Union. They used to do something, didn't he? And send his money back.
Yeah.
And I felt sorry for the bloke because he had no one here and he wasn't going to get a visit. No one was going to, no disrespect, no one was going to smuggle him anything.
No.
He had to become the person he became because of his habit.
Yeah,
It
but
took him that way.
past the time, he had nothing else to do. Really,
Yeah.
he's not going to get out, is he? He was never going to get out.
I would get a good visit. And I'd come back and he'd be one of the first ones. And I remember a couple of people saying, like, you know, are you in his pocket? And I said, no, I'm not in his pocket and he's not in mine. I said, but I respect the man and I don't want to see him go out and work when he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to be down the block. I said, and do you know what? Because you walk past and you go, oh, Vic, you know what I mean? The guy's a good guy. And again, with that, I'll take you to another good guy now, which no one really speaks a lot about. And I was close to this man, Ronnie Easterbrook.
Ronnie Easterbrook,
Vicky Dark. Me and Vic Dark kept Ronnie Easterbrook alive.
You was there?
I was there because we was in SSU together, and I met Ronnie Easterbrook in 1992.
Carry on talking. I'm going wee. And you just carry, because you're telling my story. I'm not going to...
So, go on.
I'm not going to waste this opportunity.
He's just going to wee a minute.
Can Darren keep talking about it? You met Vic Dark.
So, I met...
And Ronnie Easterbrook.
I met Vic Dark in 93, and I met Ronnie Easterbrook in about April of 1982. At the time, Ronnie Easterbrook was in E-Wing in Orthall Prison, double catted. I was in the same wing. There was me, Ronnie Easterbrook, a black guy from London called Zeus, and a lunatic from Reading called Ricketts. And that's how I first met Ron. He was double A cat, because with Ronnie, I used to get once a week what they would call souls in polls in the old days. So souls in polls were solicitors and police visits. So what Ronnie would do was go on exercise and he would give me his letters. They'd be really, really folded up with an address. Then I'd go on a souls in polls visit. give them to my solicitor, and my solicitor would then post them for Ronnie, because when you're double catted, well, Ron was triple, wasn't he? So when you were tripled up, everything was scrutinised. He never had no privacy at all.
No.
And I, you know, it was. I'd never forget it, because he was writing to. All I can remember, the address was in London, and the woman was called Rachel.
Yeah.
Because I said, like, you know, is that your bird? And he was like, nah, it's just somebody who was helping me. I think she was something to do with Tony Ash or something.
Yes.
And so we got up a bit of a bond. We was in the block together in, say, April of 92.
Yeah.
And he was what he called a political prisoner.
Yes.
He got a life sentence because he got shot on a bit of work. B-jams or something. I think he said he was robbing a B-jams, and it went like wrong, and he got shot. His Cody got killed. Yep. And his other Cody got something like 7 years. He didn't get a long time.
Yeah.
But because of Ronnie's name and Ronnie's past, he get life. No, double life, didn't he? Double life.
Yeah, it was...
So like 27 years. Then he petitioned it.
Yeah.
And he got put down to 21 years.
Yeah.
But then he done it politically. So he went on hunger strike.
Yeah.
So
I saw a little bit of that.
He had to show the prison face, like that he wasn't doing it. So on now and again, we'd get exercise together, and I'd have to bring him out, like, you know, put it into like a bag, like tuna mayonnaise with sweet corn, so he could eat some up, or bring him a couple of biscuits. Because when they were giving him meals, you got to refuse them.
Yep.
You say, no, I'm on hunger strike. You know, and they'd be like, oh, all right. And they'd be like, they try off, if you go on it for about a week, they offer you bits from the canteen.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, they try and give him biscuits and stuff. And kind of kept him going. I was getting his mail out for him. So then I got transferred to Durham. And I went from Durham, get this right, I went Bristol, Durham, Pentonville on appeal. I went to Gartree, then I went to Long Larton.
Go on.
But when I hit Larton, Ronnie was there.
Yeah.
Easterbrook.
Yeah.
So kind of like straight away, got chatting again, you know what I mean? He's like, how you doing, boy? And I was like, you all right? And stuff. I said, you still hunger striking? And he said, yeah. And I was like, fucking hell, you gonna give it up? He said, no, I ain't. He said, nah. Then he actually got an appeal, didn't he then? In about 93 and 94, he got some heard in Crown Court, and they dropped his tariff to like 21 years.
Yeah.
But like he said, even though it's 21 years, I got to do 21. Because it was against the police, I'll get the first knockback, so it takes it to 26 years. He said then after that, you know, I ain't going to come out with all these fucking restrictions. That's what he was trying to get dropped, was even though you had a life sentence, he wanted the restrictions after the sentence dropped, because he said they're unfair. Because you live a life, a life licence, and for them boys, it can be a bit hard, and it can be brutal, and that's what he was trying to change, and it didn't really happen.
No.
So he went on hunger strike. And I found Ronnie Easterbrook like very informative.
Yes.
You know, he'd run off names from the past. I never knew him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he'd be like this person, that person. He was in the era of like Lenny McLean and stuff, and Roy Shaw.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, he spoke about, you know, Roy and stuff, because obviously in the prison estate at that time, Roy Shaw, I think, was in
Parkhurst.
No. Broadmoor.
Broadmoor.
And Roy was there, and like people have obviously got to meet Vic Dark in Long Larton.
Yeah.
And what a fucking powerhouse.
And so Roy Shaw ended up in
Roy went with us because Roy was in Broadmoor.
Yeah, but did he stay there? On that, did he get released from there, or did he come back out of the mental institution? I think
he come out, and I think he done his bird in Gartree. Because when I landed on I landed in Gartree years afterwards, and somebody had said like the pad I was in, that was Roy Shaw's. Yeah. And I was like, oh right, I've heard about him through like Ronnie Easterbrook. Like he was a good pal of Ronnie's. Yeah. And obviously Vic Dark.
And then Vic Dark to you now, after hearing everything about him, now you see him.
Vic, sorry?
You heard a lot about Vic Dark, and then now you're meeting him.
Oh, all one of that. He was what they said on the jar.
All right.
He was, but again, he was, how would you put Vic Dark? He was one of these, he's a bit like some of the other names. He kept himself to himself. He was into his training. Yeah. He looked after himself. Yeah. He didn't have it with screws. No. He was kind of like, he wouldn't be a yes or no sir.
No.
It was us and them.
Yeah.
So, and he kind of, his close, like I would try to say that his best friend in there was Ronnie Easterbrook. That was his best mate. Because when we was in the block together in Long Darton, we had, you remember the 28 lay die downs I used to give you, GOAD?
Yeah.
And the governor, that was that. Our governor then was a guy called Joe Whitey, or Joe Whitey or Whitey. Horrible bastard. You know what I mean? He was a very vicious man, and he believed in punishment, and he believed in batterings. And he was one of these, he was trying to break Ronnie Easterbrook by getting him off the wing, just shanghai him from the wing, down a block, because he felt that he could make him eat. So me and Vic Dart kept Ronnie Easterbrook alive. We used to get him bits of food.
Wow.
Or we'd go out and then they stopped Ron for a bit, exercising with us. Yeah. They got wind of it. So what we would do, we'd have to go on the yard and hide bits of food from the block yard. So when Ron went out, he'd find it, have a quick munch.
Wow.
But that was all the people.
I don't think he used to do that for him.
Do you know what? Vic Dart's a powerhouse.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, you won't want to go against him.
Well respected.
But he was a lovely man. He did his bird respectfully, and he was very, very, very respectful to a lot of people in that circle. But he kind of really, he helped Easterbrook a lot. Yeah. And I was grateful of that because, you know, I met Ron. When I met Easterbrook, it was just me and him.
Yeah, I know.
So I, you know, got really pally with him. And our cells were next to each other in the block. So we chat through the window at night. It was sad because he was trying to overturn so many things.
I know, he stayed strong to the bit.
And I get what he did. I think he died in Whitemore.
No, I saw him in Whitemore. I thought because he was lobbing the parcels when the governor used to come or throw the food or shit parcels at the governor. But I said that when I first come out because I thought he died in Whitemore. But then somebody said to me, no, Yami, he moved from there and went Gartree and died or somewhere like that after that. But I always believed it was Whitemore. Because I saw him, I was opposite in the cell down the block. Yeah. So, and I heard shortly after that he died, but obviously thinking that but he might have got to move after that, and it weren't too long after that.
Because another one I met briefly on remember the ghostings? We used to get ghosted now and again, and you met him as well. Was Valerio Vici, GG? Remember Valerio?
Yeah, we had this debate, me and Uncle Phil Curry, rest in peace. He thought that Valerio Vici didn't come on the winging park. No, I said I saw him for 2 weeks.
He did.
Way back in the day. Your relationship with him?
Again.
Knightsbridge safe deposit robber.
Yeah, he was like James Bond. When he talked now and again, you'd think like, really? Like,
good talker, isn't he?
He was a very good talker, very charismatic, wasn't he? Yeah. And he was good with it as well. Yeah. But he knew that going back to Italy, he was going to die. And he said that was our government's way of punishing him because they sealed his fate.
Is that what that talk was? Because I didn't stay there long enough.
So basically, I asked him one day about when we got talking. We got political about things, and he just literally, I couldn't believe it. Like he said to me, like, you know much about the mafia, and I was like, no, mate, I don't know like anything about them. Sorry. And he was telling me about what they were like, and obviously when he done, is it the Knightsbridge he done?
Yeah, Knightsbridge. Yeah.
The mafia tried to step on his toes. Yeah. And said like, you know, we want a fraction of that money, and he said for instance, he said out of like 90 million, I done the work. He said. And I'm not going to go and give 10 million to someone who did nothing. I took the risks. I got it.
Robert's way of thinking.
And he said, he said in the thing, and I said, how come you never paid the mafia? And he said, because it wouldn't have stopped there. No. He said, there'd have been this and there'd have been tax for that. He said, I'd have ended up with nothing. He said, they come in small, but then they come on big. He said, then they put it to my family. He said, and rather than go down that route, he said, like, you know, I wouldn't pay them. He said, but then obviously your British government heard about it and they're giving me a deportation order to a place where I'm going to die. Wow. And I was like, shit. I said, and I said, like, if you could, like, give some money towards them now, would that help? He said, but I won't be fooled. No, they'll do it anyway. And he said that you'll end up with nothing. He said, everything I worked for, and like he said, he had a good thing. He said, listen, my friend. And I said, yeah, go on. He said, do you see the mafia here? I said, no. And I was like, he said, me, Gigi, and you. I said, yeah. He said, well, I'm doing it. They're not. They're not here. He said, no, I don't get letters from the mafia. No. I don't get packages of money from the mafia. He said, but I took the risk, and I ain't paying the man. I done it. And that's why he got deported, back to Italy because he wouldn't pay the
Thanks for
mafia.
clarifying that.
They obviously then got word here and said, look, bring him back, we'll take care of him.
Yep.
Because obviously he didn't, I never asked him about Knightsbridge and stuff.
No.
And a couple of people, you know, like the old man Frankie said about it. And I said, like, he said there was stuff in there that shouldn't have been seen.
Yep.
You know, he said,
And that's fact.
that, he said, and they put a price on it.
That's fact.
He said there was stuff in there that shouldn't have been seen.
Thank you for clarifying that. Darren, but there's rumours, I didn't see you at the time with them, but there's rumours that you was quite close to certain Irish prisoners.
Yeah, so basically in Long Lartin, apart from D-Wing, which is like the deportation wing, we had Hugh O'Callaghan, who was wrongly convicted. Remember Hugh?
No, not maybe, but about to hear his name.
I think it was either the Guildford or the Birmingham pub bombings.
What's his name?
Hugh O'Callaghan.
Callahan. Oh, I thought you were say Conlon.
No, that's
the other. That's
Jerry
Brendan
or something.
Or something.
Jerry Conlon or
I can't remember.
Giuseppe or whatever. I don't know his name.
I met one in the early days, but in all
but Hugh O'Callaghan had like links to the IRA.
Yeah.
And it used to be quite funny because back then there wasn't a big like movement of Muslims.
No.
And they'd have to pass through the wing now and again to go like they used to call it prayers. Like I didn't get involved with religion, but they used to, like the IRA used to say on Fridays they would be getting ready, and I'd be like, I used to think, oh, not again. And they used to go as ass in the air day because they said that's what they used to call it, ass in the air day. The Muslims would go off to pray, and then used to get like O'Callaghan, Hill, and a couple of little Paddy Hill.
Yeah.
Got a.
Yep.
And they would hang about and obviously ambush the Muslims when they come through.
Madness. So
they were shouting out, Ali Akbar or Salam alaikum salam.
There weren't a lot of Muslims around here.
There was a small movement. That's why they used to get outnumbered. But then you'd have everybody else going up the fucking Ra. A big commotion. Again, they were, like with the Irish boys, they kind of kept themselves to themselves.
Yep.
They didn't disclose it, and I didn't want to get in with them.
No.
I didn't really have a lot. He was someone I had to live close quarters by.
Yeah.
So I didn't ask him about anything political.
You don't.
It was just now and again, like, you know, I helped him, he helped me. He'd be like, you know, you've got a bit of this. But yeah, you know, you've got, I'd go in and say, like, you know, got any juice? Or can I pinch a bit of juice until we get paid? Like, he'd be like, yeah, they are. You know what I mean? And that was it. That was
keep it down.
You know, I think...
When we talk about men in jail, just as what we see in jail, not about their crimes. We see them as persons. There's a certain no-go. If you start investigating, asking questions, people are going to get everyone's just like zip. Well, but apart from when you're innocent and they're telling them, and I believe that those two lots were, but...
I believed the IRA boys.
Yeah.
Because there was no evidence. I believed Warren's... Slaney. I definitely believed him because the way he carried himself, I think that's why the rest were guilty.
Well, we'll talk about that another time. Though. Dad, what about you used to funny how you chucks into a chat serial killers that you and Fred Lowe used to do laps together as well.
Drop Dead Fred.
Drop Dead Fred. What about his character, Fred? What kind of man and what?
Right. How can you put Fred? Fred Lowe. A bit like me, glasses. Quite short and stout.
Yeah.
Very articulate in his way.
Yeah.
Loved, you know, to know what was on TV and stuff. Because back then, we never had TVs in the cellar. You only had it in the recreation rooms. Yeah. That's when you had a TV. And Fred liked his life planned. And again, with Fred, he was abused in his life. Yeah, he's had abuse. And he done like the approved schools. He did like young offenders and stuff. Then obviously with Fred, he was never happy with his murder conviction.
Right.
He felt it unjustful.
Right.
He felt like he'd been done.
Yeah.
And he didn't deserve the 3 or 4 life sentences.
Yeah.
So he made a point of getting a couple of life sentences in prison to make him satisfied with the sentence. And again, with Fred, he had nothing to talk about because he hadn't really witnessed like me and you outside. He'd never really had that, and I asked him one day, like, I said to Fred, like, I said, you ever been with a woman? Like, you know, and he kind of smirked and
Shy.
was like,
For that bit.
you know, and he's like, oh.
That's it, he's like that.
And the thing with Fred Lowe, again, an intelligent man, couldn't play the guitar.
No.
Jesus Christ.
He thought he could.
No, he couldn't. He was never going to be Tom Jones, I'm afraid. But I liked him because I was trying, like, I suppose, I wanted to try and help people on my sentence.
Yeah.
And I wanted to understand them because it helped me.
Yeah.
I didn't do it to get a pat on the back.
No.
I did it to learn from them people so we don't make those mistakes.
Yeah.
I saw these people and I didn't want to be them. Okay? So you got to ask now and again questions, aren't you? Like what goes through your brain. And again with Fred Lowe, you know, Fred, the problem with Fred, he had trust issues. He didn't trust anybody.
Yeah.
And because of his past, he was tormented by it.
Yeah.
And he knew that he would never get out of prison, and he knew that prison would be his life. You know, along with the other prick we would come in contact with. But he was an horrible man. Remember Colin Pitchfork?
Yeah.
Remember he?
No, I don't like
I didn't like him either. I met him in Gardray. I didn't like him.
Did you saw him in the murder?
Yeah.
Oh, but hold on. Fred Lowe, one of those murder, one of them people killed inside. What was his
3 of them he killed inside. I
Yeah.
don't know who he killed because that was over a set of hair clippers.
So it's over the hair
That
clippers.
was there. I asked Fred about that. That was over.
But Pitchfork, anyway, gets Pitchfork. Pitchfork went on the numbers though in the end.
Yeah, he goes to the different jails.
Giles, I missed him.
Then he would come. He'd come. Just say, for instance, he came into Longlartin or Whitemore or Leicester, or until it was out of who he was and what he was about. He would try and mingle. You know, Pitchfork would try and mingle, and then he'd have to go off and number himself up because he was just a horrible piece of work. And straight away, he'd last about a day or two on the landings. He was gone.
He was fucking brave to do that because when I was in Longlartin, he was on the nonsense wing and got down the hospital.
He was
on his own
because he didn't get on with the one I told you about, Noel Reynolds.
The Geordie.
Yeah,
what about him? The Geordie, Noel Reynolds. He was pretty tough.
He was from a place called South Shields.
Yeah.
And he committed his offence when he was young. And he was full of remorse because it was his friend who he killed.
Yeah.
And with what was sad with Noel was I spoke to his sister recently because he passed away in January this year. He got killed. Yeah, he come out. So he'd done like 27 on a life.
Yeah.
He'd come out, and out of nowhere, I just get this friend request one day, and I was like, Noel. I was like, what up? And he straight away rang me on Messenger.
Yeah.
He's like, bruv, how you doing? I was like, no. I said, no. He said, yeah. He said, I'm out. I was like, okay, now. He said, yeah, I met someone. I'm going to be a chef, going to be doing this. And I was like, Jesus, I said, what you doing here? And he said, 27. I was like,
20, he did end up.
Yeah, 27 years. And we was on our way to Pitchfork, and he said, I made it my mission to get him.
Yeah.
I said, I know you did. I said, there a couple of times when you tried to get yourself on the numbers to get him. He said, didn't work, did it? He said, nah. And he said, obviously, Victor fucked that one up.
Oh, yes, that was the rumour.
Yeah, Victor didn't.
So that was, all right now.
So then he had hatred for people like Colin Pitchfork and a couple of others. But Noel was,
Well, all right. Yeah, we thought he was tough. He could have a right row.
Look, Noel could look after himself. He was never a coward.
Right.
He was very forward.
Yeah.
Like Newcastle. And I found him all right.
Quick, I'm remembering everything today. Colin Island.
Banana fingers. Didn't like the bloke. Big bloke. Strange bloke.
Yeah.
Bit of a faggot, if I'm honest. A lot of people, because of it, you got to remember, with him and Gary, Big Gary, Fincher, because of their height and because of their stature, a lot of lads wanted to row with him, especially with Colin Ireland, because he was big. We used to call him Banana Fingers, because his fingers...
Was Vinter weary of Ireland? No.
Vinter was a loner, but Colin Ireland had fingers like that. That was one of his fingers. He was a huge bloke. Yeah. And he was very... with Colin Ireland, obviously, me and Cal watched the thing about him. And I was like, oh my God, like that guy was not like that. Like when you see him behind the door,
Yeah, they talk. That's what I was saying.
he was very, you know him, he was very quiet. He really kept himself to himself. He was always a bit nervous and a bit twitchy of different people on the wings. He was always looking, wasn't he? And trying to avoid everything. Confrontation. He didn't really go in the kitchens cooking because he didn't want to get swilled.
That's what he used to spy like that.
Yeah, they had, didn't they, with them serial? Because they were big.
Yeah.
They were a trophy.
Yeah.
And it was like the unassuming guy doing like 15 to 17 years who wouldn't think twice of going in and swelling and taking him.
Yeah.
Because they could turn around and say, well, I had him. He's 6 foot, whatever.
Yeah.
But
and they do funny things and say, and then people are thinking about getting them back after. They know they drop themselves in it a little bit.
The only thing I found with them two was they could use their build as leverage.
Intimidation, yeah.
You know, and it didn't always work.
No.
And they'd come unstuck quite a lot. You know, more so Vinter, because he became a loner, didn't he?
Yeah.
You know, and I think in the end he went up north somewhere.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Colin Ireland, but Banana Fingers, he, again, really kept himself to himself.
But Darren, before I forget, Fred Lowe, the kind of conversations that would take place between you and him, what kind of just very ordinary, like, he talks about basically nothing, or...
No, we talk about his life.
He watched TV and things like that.
He'd watch, and he'd go on about TV that someone was going to be on, because he used to get the TV magazines, and he'd be like, oh, you know, that's on Saturday, that's on Sunday, I'll be watching that, and that was his life. But then our chats were about, you know, what got him there. And I don't know, I felt like a bit of an agony aunt come the end, because I'd kind of ask him like, about his behaviour, and, you know, do you ever want to get released? And he was like, no, I wouldn't know the outside world. To me, it's like a foreign land. And I said, but it's not, just because you've had a rough start. I said, I've had a rough start, but this ain't the end all be all, Fred. You know, you can go out and still achieve things, but where he was quite, he wasn't educated, and he, you know, when you got like a prison education, you don't come out with diplomas or degrees. No. You come out with putting your hands up and learning to do your left and rights.
And the thinking you can do your head in all.
When you're living with dangerous men 24/7, 365, you see no end of violence.
Right.
So I'd ask him about his life, about his abuse, you know, and he'd open up and he'd say that's what made him a monster. You know, he didn't like the person he'd become, but he couldn't help the person he'd become either, because he was stuck in that body. And he just couldn't see out. Fred was going to kill X amount of people inside. Fred wanted a big trophy on his gravestone to say whatever.
Right, now, brilliant stuff this is. David McAllister.
Oh, Davy Mack from Norwich.
What do you reckon?
Lovely guy.
Yeah?
Yeah, very, very manipulated, very relaxed, very calm. All he thought about, very smooth, all Dave thought about was escape. That was it. That was all Dave thought about was escape.
And Simone a bit.
Yeah, he didn't like certain regulations. He didn't agree with certain prisoners. He didn't agree with the way, like, your mass murderers got treated. He got treated like kids. Yeah. He didn't agree with that, and so rightly so. But then he got told, because he used to have group chats now and again, and with the group chats, he got brought in. And he'd like, you know, I'm not happy with the way Fred is, or I'm not happy with the way Pat is, or, you know, the way Maudsley's being treated. And they go like, you know, they do it, David, or Mac, they used to call him. We do it, Mac, to keep him calm. So that the person they were outside, they don't become that person inside. You know, we don't do it because we're scared of them, and we're not. No. But we do it because we try and, you know, keep peace and keep things justified. And he you know, he was with Dave McAllister. He would kind of like find an argument in anything, but he was a nice guy. He came from Norwich. Yeah. Because I tried finding him when I was living in Norfolk, but I couldn't get hold of him.
I didn't get to meet him.
And I liked him, but he was hell bent on escaping. Yeah. And I kind of said, like, you know, you're just going to keep getting your bird totted up. And the one place he didn't like, I didn't go to, but the one they used to threaten him, which was Albany. And he didn't like going to the island.
Interesting that we was talking, when me and you was talking about the past, like, me and you always believed, and many cat men always believed that Albany was the worst one than Parkhurst, in a way, because more people used to get hurt severely in Albany than they did in... it's always had the stigma, Albany, of the scary place. When I was a little boy and I went there, and I shit myself, well, I learned a little bit the couple of months I was there.
Everybody who passed through the gates of Albany, I didn't. The violence there was off the Richter scale.
Yeah.
The violence there was at a different league altogether. A lot of people wanted the pass to go into Parkhurst rather than Albany because
all the big names
they just said that Albany was it was known for stabbings. Wasn't it? It was a stabbing. It was more for the stabbings.
Yeah.
And there was another one which a lot of people tried to swerve was Camp Hill.
That's a C-cap
But
version.
do you know
All,
what? Do you know the thing is though? I don't care what anybody says. Some of these C-cats can be as bad as the A-cats.
Yeah, it depends who's there.
Do you know why?
Yeah, it's free, open, it's madness.
And you've got young guys full of testosterone.
Oh, now, yeah.
And they're banksing around, bruv. You know what I mean? Everything's bruv.
Because everybody's trying to make their name won't be the cat is. Everyone's either got their name already or...
You're in the wrong postcode, you know.
Darren, Kenneth and I, John Palmer, the real truth behind their relationship. What you saw.
I seen both of those in different long-term establishments. Yeah. You know, I'll speak honestly and I'll speak from the heart. Kenny Noy, lovely guy. I don't care what anybody says. I ain't bragging something. I like Kenny because he kept himself to himself.
Yeah.
He asked nothing off no one.
No.
He never borrowed, he never begged, and he never stole. He was...
Doesn't have to though, does he?
No, he doesn't. But, you know, and he didn't, and he never asked the authorities for a thing.
No.
He never engaged with any screw. He was, you know... Obviously, with poor old Johnny Palmer, I bumped him to his son-in-law, Ginge, a couple of years back.
I thought you knew.
Yeah, Andy Wild. And he, you know, I said, like, sorry, mate, John, blah, blah, blah. But, yeah, he was...
Because they were together a couple of stages.
Yeah, people said, like, they have an odd relationship, but then he wouldn't. But then it won't. When you look at... I'm not going to say nothing. You know, look, all I'll say with Kenny Noy is Kenny kept himself to himself, and, yeah, he was sweet to John.
Yeah.
You know, that's, you know, because Kenny's on licence, so I ain't listening nothing to jeopardise it.
No, but it's not bad now. It's all, no, you're not saying anything that no one knows.
John Palmer, I think because John had all that stuff with the 365 million, and was it Brinksmat?
He was involved in that.
Yeah.
They both got off that, I think. Oh no, Kenny got the 14 for handling, didn't he?
Kenny got,
but John Palmer got off at Magistrates, got All-Star Committal, I think.
And with a lot of people try to extortion it, like take money from Palmer.
I know.
And I think what shocked me was the amount of stuff he lost in jail.
Yep.
Because he was forever getting robbed.
I know.
You know, and I'd be thinking like, Jesus Christ, you got that much clout, you got that much dough.
It wasn't everyone's cup of tea. He was a bit strange to really describe it. I'm glad you clarified this.
He was, like I say...
But if you...
You know, Kenny Noy, I thought the world of Kenny. Because you
couldn't rob Kenny like that.
You're having a laugh. You're having a laugh. Kenny wouldn't do it.
But yeah, he looked up to John in certain ways, I believe, when it came to money and business and whatever.
John did likewise to Kenny Noy.
Yeah.
You know, I always felt now and again that John Palmer spoke to Kenny as protection, because Kenny kind of like looks out for John in a way. Because you got to remember, you know, you can't keep going through a prison sentence being manipulated.
No.
You can't do that. Because if it's happening in the Cat A's and Cat B's, by the time you get to the Cat C's, someone's going to be coming for your asshole. So, and the amount of stuff John was losing, it wasn't right. No. You know, he kind of like, he had a pair of trainers nicked one day from his pad.
Do you remember? Oh, was you there at that time, Darren?
I was, mate, he was a bit angry, and I kind of pulled John Palmer, and I kind of said, John, mate, you know, I fucking know who got him. Oh. I said, do you want to, should we get some pillowcases?
What did he say?
Do you want to come in with me? And I'll get them back for you. And he was like, oh, let him go. I said, John, I said, mate.
Yeah, but he's a big man for that. Like, he can get it back another time, couldn't
he? He was like, look, he said, I don't need it at the moment. I got blah, blah.
Yeah.
I said, I get that. I said, but you're being extorted.
Right.
They're taking a piss at you now.
Right.
I said, you got your nice chain. I said, that'd be next. And it fucking went. I went there. It went in.
And I've told that story up there.
Somewhere in London.
It was cold in there.
But,
yeah. No, the watch. But go on.
And then, you know, and I kind of, but it was because a lot of people that come in thought that, you know, he had the 28 mil in his cell and he never. Yeah. And they would look at him with the stuff, with the bling you wore, because you're on the show, aren't you? You're on show. But he was another one. He didn't really, the Screws didn't like him.
I know they didn't.
They didn't like
But
him.
he could find out anything he wanted.
You know, he had a way of manipulating certain Screws.
Yep.
You know, and come the end, what they started doing with him, especially in Lorton, was they put him on closed visits.
Yep.
So they used to get this. Remember, at closed visits, you have the glass, and you'd be sat that side. Your visits are that side. You'd have a screw on that side with your visits, and the screw behind you on your visit, so they could listen in.
Yeah.
Because
he wouldn't be talking on them.
You know, you couldn't.
Him and Kenny wouldn't even go to a normal visit and all and talk.
No.
Can't. They know the table's going to be bugged.
I seen a photograph going back a couple of months ago with Kenny, and he looked really well.
He does.
And
always looks quite well.
God bless you, Kenny's a lovely bloke.
Yeah, Kenny was.
You know,
yeah.
Rest in peace, John. But you're going to get it.
Darren, hold on, this has been today. It's got to be a part 2 to this, you lot.
Yeah.
So you've got Darren, what was it? So then to Gartree, to Parkhurst. Hold on, you came back round. So your crimes as well, Darren, your robberies. Because you got addicted.
Yeah.
You got into crime quite early, and you was robbing post office apparently.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into too deep about it.
Co-defendants,
that
was what set you on the road when you got.
Basically, my 2 co-defendants, I won't go into it because I had a bit. I did 3 interviews with Sean, and on one of them, the police stopped part 2 coming out after the first one.
Is it?
Yeah.
All right, I'll mention it.
I had a bit of stick because they kind of felt that I was gloating with the stuff.
Nah, all right.
But basically, I'll give you an insight because it's only fair. So I just got involved in crime in a different way. I had 2 co-defendants who are now dead. One died in prison. We believe that was to do with the police. He was killed just before our appeal. Found hanging in his cell day before our appeal. You know, no man does that. You're going to go up on appeal and get your sentence reduced, and you go into the appeal court and he's dead. It didn't happen. So that we know what happened there. We had to accept. And I just got involved with, you know, robberies, fraud, anything of high value. You know, and the only reason why I got into a life of crime and I become, you know, one of Britain's youngest Cat A prisoners was because of the way my life had been mapped out from an early age.
Exactly.
Because what chance did I have? I couldn't even read or write at that age. You know, I was just ripped in pain. No one ever sat me down and said, look, I love you, mate. And do you know what? The sad thing was, when I was involved in a life of crime, what kills me to this day was the people who I helped, who I give a lot of money to, were my mum and dad, who severely raped me. But I did it because, do you know why? If they'd have turned around and said to me, I love you, that's all I wanted. If they'd have said to me, I love you, I'd have forgiven for everything.
You could never forgive him for nothing like that. A lot of it was he's going to come and do parts, little small parts about trauma and abuse, and that. It's too harrowing, the story, to go into detail. It really is one of the, which some of you lot, you know what I mean when I'm talking this way. And imagine as well, tell them briefly what happened one day when you turned up at the Crown Court and who was sitting. And just as a little taster,
so I'll give you a taste of
many elements like this in his story, but like I said, we're not going to go too.
I'll give you a taste. There is going to be a part 2, so I'll save the best till last, which is really good.
Darren?
On our day of sentencing, our trial judge, because we did a plea bargain, and our trial judge went sick, Sir Ian Lewis. So on the day of sentencing, we got told in the court cells. We got told in the court cells that our judge had gone sick, which was Sir Ian Lewis. And then we had another judge. They didn't know who it was at the time. They were trying to get another judge in. And me and my 2 defendants, Old Bridewell Crown Court in Bristol is now gone. Now it's now a museum. Went into the dock and I froze. And there was a barrister from London who was representing me called Dorian Day. And he kept saying, like, is everything all right? Is everything all right? And my 2 codees are going, what's going on? What's going on? And I couldn't tell him because I kept holding the rail and I looked right like I'm pointing now, sorry. I looked like I'm pointing to the camera and I just looked right across and it was a man that raped me. He was passing sentence on me, but he couldn't look at me. He kept putting his head to the side. And obviously we didn't get the numbers we should have got because he recognised me, and I was given a death sentence because you were worth more dead than alive. because being alive, you could take down so many paedophiles. You know, that's why with this podcast today with Yummy, we've not gone into the abuse of the.
There's much more
You know,
more
I'll
to
save
come,
you the best in
and more
part two,
massive
'cause-
stories as well. This has been absolute mayhem. This is
Blow
probably
your
one of the
brains with it.
greatest.
It's been hard doing this.
no,
They're not easy. You know, we took a bit of time getting here this morning.
Yeah, but Darren, you've done really well.
Thank you, brother.
And we've not even touched the surface. But was there anything else? I know my boy Kelly's an guardian angel for you. Your health's much better now.
I do want to say a couple of things on behalf of Cal, which she asked me to say this morning. So, with all we went through in Great Yarmouth, what was hard was Kelly had to leave behind friends in Great Yarmouth who today she can't contact because of the Osborne warning.
Yeah.
And we can't give out our details of where we are, just in case anybody unexpectedly says anything. Oh yeah, Kel's blah blah blah. We can't do that, and that's killed her because she had to say goodbye to friends. Well, she never had to just pack and go. But I will say to anybody that knows Kelly, and especially to her family, thank you for making her the person she is. Because I'll tell you what, she saved my life. You know, she really has saved my life. You ruined hers, but I've made it better. You know.
Darren, I love you, man.
Cheers, brother.
Right, my boy, we've got to get part two, man. But Uncle Yum doesn't like to go past the 2 hour mark because this one's really emotional as well. There's so much. But remember the other stories of Mulcahy's, and we had Scottish prisoners all over the country. We'll get round to Massey and all that on the next one. But it's a lot in this one today. So Uncle Yummy's saying special love to you, and I'm going to go and move in a minute, stay in Wales for a couple of days more maybe, but. Darren, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, brother.
Very hard thing to do, man. But
bye for now, guys.
Special love to you, and Uncle Darren will be back in the house soon.